right, so let's get started. I appreciate everyone taking time to join us today for our Duraphone Roam session on hospitality, how the Duraphone Roam can help in hospitality settings. Um, I think the first thing we should look at is the U.S. travel forecast. So from the U.S. Travel Association, what they are predicting is there's going to be a lot of growth in the travel industry. There was a issue with when the pandemic hit with the amount of traveling that was done. So 4 billion total numbers of trip. In 2020, there was a dramatic drop of 1.6. 2021, 22, 23, and 24. The travel industry has been growing again. Hospitality is going to be a big thing going forward. It's growing every year, and there's nothing that's going to change it. Usually there's a 4-to-1 ratio of people traveling from leisure to business. So there's a lot of people who want to travel for leisure, and they want to enjoy the experience when they go to these hotels. They want to have the best service and have a good time and enjoy themselves. And you can see the spending that the industry itself is $1 trillion a year amount, and it keeps continuing growing. So it's a big piece of growth and a big piece of revenue that we should be a part of when you're talking about IT and setting up it for the best experience for these customers. So then we need to talk about the importance of telecommunication in these hospitality. So what can telecommunication do? It helps meet guest needs. It reduces wait times. It helps in getting quicker check-ins and checkouts. Overall, just create a better experience for the customer. It builds loyalty in your brand, and very importantly, improves reviews. Because nowadays, social media, most people, like 80% of people nowadays, look at reviews before they actually book a hotel. So you got to make sure that your experience is A1. Anybody who goes to your hotel, you got to make sure their experience is amazing so that they can give you a good review. So when you're talking about staff in a hotel, they all need to be connected. They all need to be able to communicate so that it creates a experience for the customer. So who do you think needs to stay connected at a hotel? So if you look at the simple diagram, valet staff. So your valet staff, if you could, they had the ability to reach them, you can call them and make sure the customer door. The front desk, of course, the concierge, if you give information, they can call. They can sometimes concierge travel around, they walk around the building. They need to be able to stay communicated. Even your bellhop, taking luggage to a certain room. Maybe there's a change in, you change the room number and the bellhop is going up to the wrong room. You need to make a quick call or a quick way to communicate with them, tell them to bring it to a different room. Your housekeeping staff, I talked about it as far as quick check-ins and checkouts. Nowadays, most people do digital checkouts. So as soon as they click on their television, they click on their laptop, they click the checkout button, the front staff, the front desk gets notified. But at the same time, the housekeeping crew is wandering the hallways because they kind of have a set schedule already. But here in that scenario, if you have a way to quickly communicate with them, you can give them a call and say, hey, room 112, the customer just checked out and we really need that room. So they quickly change their schedule, go to that room, and improve the service as far as getting that room clean and getting that room ready for the next maintenance crew. They wander to the building. There's people who, fix the elevators. They fix the electrical, the plumbing in one place. They roam. You need to be able to quickly reach them. Maybe there's a leak in one of the rooms and you need to reach the person really fast to get over there. But you can't find them because they're in the building and there's no way to connect with them. Maybe there's the signal on their cell phone is weak. Maybe they're like in the closet because they're fixing something. You need a quick way to actually contact them. Your security staff in case of emergencies, your restaurant staff. Also, even outdoors, a lot of hotels now have pools and lifeguards. There's people who bring food out to the pool as a service. So those people are roaming around. They need to go to the kitchen. They need to go out to the pool. Also, the ability to communicate. Even your retail staff, people who have stores. I was recently on a trip where I was at a hotel where I asked, I wanted a particular brand of energy drink. And I called downstairs and I said, hey, do you guys have this particular brand of energy drink? And they're like, I'm not sure, but there's a retail store. You can walk over there in the hotel and get it, check if they have it. But it would have been a lot easier if they were able to communicate with the staff there and just check to make sure that the drink that I wanted was available. There's a lot of things that help improve the guest experience, and all your staff in your hotel needs to be connected. But one of the challenges that you'll run into in these type of settings in hospitality is the properties that you, not only hotels, there's resorts where you have, poolside, you have outside, you have golf courses, you have even really large areas of spread out white spreads versus the buildings themselves. You'll get drop calls. There might be some dead zones where it's just too hard to reach for cell phone signals and other things. Maybe the building is oddly shaped. Sometimes it's L shaped, sometimes it's Z shaped. Communication in those type of situation. Also, another thing is Wi-Fi signal. If you rely everything on just Wi-Fi, it's not always perfect in every area. And there might be a lot of other devices that are using Wi-Fi. So if you use IoT devices, you use cameras, point of sale, things like that, they rely on Wi-Fi. So it's already using up the bandwidth. Usually a voice connection is prioritized, but at the same time, you're using up all that bandwidth that's needed for your other devices. Same thing with cell phone signals, not always reliable. You've all been there where you pull out your cell phone and it's like got 1.5 to half a bar, and then you just can't make that phone call. So we're going to talk about the Durafone Roam, which is something in 20 years. Many of you have familiar with our Durafone product. We are leader in long-range cordless phones. We've been using it for 20 years. It has strong coverage, very good signal strength. It's using a 900 megahertz bandwidth. It's interference-free and secure. It's very ruggedized, so it's not going to get damaged easily. Has two-way radio and private intercom, and it's SIP-based. So the good thing about the Roam is that it does, the new features of the Roam is that it supports the 8 bases, so you can link multi-bases together. It supports up to 90 handsets. Before, our older models usually supports 9 or 10 handsets, but here you can get 90 handsets and supports up to 32 concurrent calls. So the first thing we'll talk about is the ruggedized design, right? We actually took the phone out and drop tested it 50 height of 6 feet. So, you stand there, raise it over your head, dropped it 6 times, 54 times before it even took any damage. I actually personally tested it myself, taking it out. I literally drone it from a 2nd-story building. I don't recommend you doing that, but I have. And it actually survived. So this thing is very, very strong, very rugged. It's designed to handle in the toughest environments. Maybe the hotel staff, maintenance crew, housekeepers, they walk around, they carry a lot of things, they bump into things, they drop the phone. It's going to survive all that. So it's perfect for any type of frontline worker where you're going to have to be mobile and not always be careful of what you're holding in your hands. We'll talk about the 900 megahertz frequency. So this frequency is unique. There's really no other phones in the market that offer this type of frequency. So this frequency travels far. The lower the frequency, usually the far. As many of you probably know, Wi-Fi is 2.4 or 5 gigahertz or 6 gigahertz. There's a certain range, but with 900 megahertz, you're going to get a lot further frequency than any other phone out there. Most of the other phones are DEC-based. Your standard cordless phone is a DEC-based phone, so it's 1.9 gigahertz. It doesn't have the same range, and it doesn't have the same penetration ability that our phone does. We also power it with 1,000 milliwatt of power, so 1 full watt of power, which is the maximum that the FCC allows, giving it that ultra long range phone. Distance is for signal strength and penetration power. We also use something called frequency hopping spread spectrum. Basically, what it does is every 0.01 second, the signal will change. The frequency will change. So we oscillate between 928 megahertz. We change every 0.01 seconds to make sure that the signal is safe, it's secure, it makes and interfere and trying to intercept the signal becomes difficult. So you can be sure that this is going to be a safe, secure signal, that not like your standard example is a standard walkie-talkie. If somebody's using walkie-talkie, if they're on a certain frequency, in that same frequency range, they're going to be able to pick up the signal and be able to listen to your conversation. Here, since we change from 902 to 928 second megahertz every 0.01 seconds, it's going to make it impossible for somebody to listen into on your conversation. Also built into the phone itself is a two-way radio and a broadcast ability. So you can either have a one-on-one conversation with your other staff members, like a walkie-talkie, or you can also use the broadcast functions. You can broadcast to all the phone devices in particular groups. So one of the great things about this phone also is you can set it into groups. So you can have up to 7 groups of people. So for example, in a hotel setting, if you have all your housekeepers in one group, when you make a broadcast, all the housekeepers can hear it. Or when you make a phone call, only the ones in that particular group will receive the call. You can set it up for housekeeping groups, maintenance crew, etc. So imagine all the possible uses of this type of functionality of making phone calls and certain groups ringing, or making a broadcast to certain groups. We want One of the things with the Duraphone Roam system is it is a base-to-base seamless handoff. So when you put the bases out in build, when a person is actually traveling, often they're talking when they're walking throughout the building. If it travels from one base to the other, the call is going to seamlessly hand off. It's not going to get stuck. It's not going to drop. It's going to be pretty much a smooth experience, and the call is going to go through smoothly. About coverage, our phones usually we can make them to about 12 floors, 250,000 square feet worth of coverage. That's a lot for just 8 bases. Penetration power of multiple floors with just one base, or your parking lots, you're talking about 3,000 acres worth of coverage. So if it's open space, it's even more. There's a lot of things that you can do to make sure that your outdoor area is covered too. We'll talk about that later. I think the other important thing is smart cloud management. So many of you may be aware or are familiar with our cloud-based management system. So this ties into that. The Duraphone Roam has the ability to actually remotely control your base stations, handsets, and look at your accounts. You can see the topology, see how it's set up, make sure everything's working. You can import, export phone books. So if you have a new employee that just came on board and you have a new handset for them, take all the old phone numbers, just with a click of a mouse, move those phone numbers over from one handset to other. You can monitor how well the signal strength is for each employee as they're traveling throughout the building. We also send remote firmware updates so that you don't have to manually do it all the time anymore. So every time we have a new firmware and new security feature, whatever it is, we can remotely update the phones. Next thing I'll talk about is a little bit about the competition. So you'll have some customers that might say, hey, what about Wi-Fi phones? So you think about it, I mentioned it earlier, but Wi-Fi, you get maxed out on the Wi-Fi. You're using all that bandwidth for all your other things. If you're talking about a hotel, they're going to have security cameras. They're going to have phones, laptops, tablets, smartwatches, all these things from customers. The customers are going to connect to these Wi-Fi signal already. So if you're saving that bandwidth for the customer to make sure that they have the best experience on Wi-Fi, why not use your phone on something else? So that's where the 9 megahertz come in. It doesn't interfere, and it doesn't bother your Wi-Fi frequencies. That's why it's a very unique solution. Another solution that we talked about is deck phone. So this is your standard cordless phone. If you're talking about a standard deck solution, there needs to be a base and a repeater. You have to put one every 300 to 500 feet. That's a very, to be honest, that's a very small amount of space. So imagine in a building like a hotel where it's 100,000 square feet, 200,000 square feet. You have to put a repeater in base every single 300 to 500 feet. That's a lot of bases. So we found in comparison shopping with some competitors and pricing quotes, usually when a deck phone solution comes into play, it's usually like 4 or 5 times the cost of what our Duophone Roam can cover. So much better in pricing wise, much less infrastructure. So with our 8 bases alone, we're covering 250,000 square feet. And then we'll talk about a little bit of deployment tips and best practices. So when we're talking about the Duophone Roam handset, this is what it comes in the box. You get the Duophone, the handset, the high performance antenna, and the regular standard antenna installed. The battery pack, belt clip, charging cradle, and the charger cord. So the standard antenna, you can see it installed on the phone there, is what you would normally use, but we do have a high performance antenna that does improve the signal strength. And I'll talk about that a little later. But that's what's come standard in the box. This is the Duophone Roam full featured handset. Same, we have the Duophone Walkie, which has very similar features, except the Duophone Walkie, I'll talk about it a little bit, is that it doesn't have the ability to make outgoing phone calls or receive inbound phone calls. So you still have all the functionalities of the Walkie, so you can do one-on-one intercom communications with your other staff members. You can still do the broadcast functions, but you just can't make phone calls or receive phone calls from outside the facility. It does have the ability to receive transfers from phone calls. So if somebody calls in, let's say they call in your front desk and somebody picks up the phone with their phone featured handset, and then they're like, hey, let me transfer you to this particular employee that has just the walkie, they can do that. So they can transfer the call to the employee that has the Dura walkie. And then the Dura walkie can again be, that call can also transfer again back to the original employee if needed. So it does have the ability to accept transfer and transfer calls out. The second piece of the unit that you'll need for this is the BSC. So it's a base station controller. Basically, it is the brain of the system here. This synchronizes all your handsets together, all your bases together to make sure that the system works smoothly and all the calls are routed and transferred correctly. And it's a handoff from base to base without any hiccups or anything like that when you're on the call. This is, one note is the BSC, it is PoE powered. So you want to connect it to a PoE powered switch. Good thing about this is that you can mount it on the wall. Also, the BSC controller, the bottom of the BSC controller is actually magnetic. So usually people can just stick it onto their switch and just leave it there. And it works pretty well for many of our customers. It is PoE powered. So if you don't have a PoE switch at the location you're actually installing at, make sure that you get one. So we do offer, Genius does offer a couple of PoE injectors that work with this. The model number is on the right-hand side there, EP8006GAT or GP. I've actually had a customer, an installer, go out to the facility and was like, oh, wait, we don't have a PoE switch here. And they actually have to travel back and make a second trip. So make sure that you check with the customer where you're installing that you have a PoE switch, or make sure you purchase one from Ingenious. You're all ready to go with the BSC. Next one up is the base unit. So these base units act as basically antennas. You can place them, again, there's 8 of them. You can place up to 8 anywhere in the building, and each of them, I would say they have about 50,000 square foot coverage, about up to for each base. So in hotels settings. So you'll probably need a few of them if it's larger than that. Kind of assume it's kind of like that, about that size, and how much coverage you get with each of them. These can be mounted in several ways. These, on the other hand, they can be PoE powered, or they can also, it also comes with an AC/DC adapter. So the bases themselves don't need PoE power at the end. You can also just plug it into your standard wall plug. So I talked about mounting. So you can ceiling mount them. You can do a simple T-rail mounting. They kind of like your access point, hang them from the ceiling. Just make sure that when you hang them from the ceiling, you point the antenna downwards so that the signal spreads it out in a circle and sideways like that. Same with the wall mount. If you mount them, you can simply stick on your wall and use the screws that screw them in. Make sure you point the antenna upwards so the signal gets around like that. And then on the right-hand side, you can put on your tabletop. No need to do anything fancy. If you're okay with sitting up on the table, totally good with that too. Just make sure, I've had customers stick these in the closet, not the best place. You want signal strength to be good. Please don't stick them in the closet. Try to put them in somewhere where, there's still some access and some space. Don't put them behind metal shelvings. Don't do things like that. Still put them in a good spot. Talk about setup. So with the setup of the Durafone room, there's usually a couple of ways you could do it. It works basically with a simple IP PBX, SIP phone system. If you have one on premise, you basically connect it to a switch, wrap the actual BSC and the BU, you connect it to the switch itself. But you can have the PBX actually set up the SIP numbers and the extensions. Very simple setup if it's on premise. We also do cloud hosted. So any UCaaS systems that you have, all the popular ones, RingCentral, Avaya, etc. We know they work, Mitel. We connected many to the systems. We use SIP 2.0. So easily connect. We just need the username, account numbers, and some of the SIP settings to make sure they work to get this set up. So when you're deploying the bases, you want to talk about the signal strength. So big thing is the RSSI measurement. What you're looking for, just like your standard access point, is to create a slight overlap when you're laying out your bases. So you want to reach a point where the edges of your signal strength is about 85 dBm, negative 85 dBm. Usually when you get to about negative 90, that's when the signal strength, you'll start getting a choppy voice and the communication isn't clear. If you reach about negative 100, that's when you start having drop calls. So you want to make sure it's somewhere about negative 85 dBm at your edges there. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So this is the first floor of a hotel. If you have a situation where maybe that's the main area of your hotel there, there's the lobby, maybe they have their parking lot on the right-hand side where some valet staff might need communication and they still need to have the phones reach them. And maybe they have a pool area in the back where you'll also need that type of communication. So you'll have the setup with two bases, making sure they overlap a little bit to have the phone coverage indoors and outdoors. At the same hotel, maybe on the second floor, you only really need one base because again, there won't be a parking lot, there won't be a second floor, a pool area needed. So you'll have a scenario where it's two bases on the floor, first floor, maybe one base on the second floor. So lots of scenarios, but the best thing to do is usually go out and actually do a site survey to get this type of signal strength. There might be areas where the building is shaped kind of oddly, where there might be bends and curves in the actual building. So you'll need to set up maybe 2 or 3 bases here in this example, where it actually covers the entire building. Keep in mind that this applies to a vertical coverage as well. So if you have like example here, a 6-story building, the coverage, you want it to overlap. Here, you would actually put the bases on the second floor and maybe the 4th or 5th floor, depending on how strong the signal is on those other floors. So we found that usually it covers 2 or 3 floors, depending on the base themselves in these type of buildings. So you probably want to alternate floor before you put bases. You don't have to put one on every floor, unless it's really tough concrete, and then you have to put it on every floor. So how do you actually do this? Basically, there's 2 ways to measure the signal. You can measure it on the actual phone itself. So you would put the phone in signal RSSI measuring mode. We can give you instructions on how to do that on our website or in manual, it has it. And then you walk around with the phone. When you walk around with the phone, it'll tell you what the dBm is there. And then you can mark off your edges of where the signal is. So you, set out a base, walk out to the edge, and then say, hey, this is the edge, and this is where I want to figure out where I want to deploy my second base so that the two kind of overlap each other a little bit there. You can also do it in the dashboard. So the dashboard of Roam also has the ability for you to see what the signal strength of each handset. So you can also use it that way to measure your dBm when you're deploying. And then I want to talk a little bit about the additional antennas that we offer. So there are antennas that we offer for the actual phones themselves. I showed it earlier. The first one in the bottom left is the high performance antenna. It is included with the handset. So you basically unscrew the standard antenna and screw in the high performance antenna. That improves the range usually by 2.0 dBi. And usually that's about 2 to 5 dBms we find in actual application. So it helps a lot in extending your range a little bit. We also have the indoor antenna for situations where you have warehouses or you have places where you have a lot of shelving and things on the ground. You can mount these on the ceiling so the signal bounces off these things and improve your signals in those type of scenarios. And outdoors, we have the outdoor external antenna. It's a really strong antenna at 6 dBi. It improves your line of sight. So if you have a pool area, a golf course, things like that, putting one of these outside, it's going to improve your range a lot. So we do have these extra antennas to help the signal strength a little bit in scenarios where it's going to be hard to reach areas. So with that in mind, if you have this ability to set up these customers with phones everywhere for all the staff, and they're moving around, and you're able to reach them, you're going to increase the response time for all your customers. The staff's going to be happier. You decrease accidents and mistakes. You create a better team atmosphere. Even if and especially now with everything going on in the world, it's the emergency notifications. It's almost a must, right? So if to be able to quickly reach all your staff at the hotel with just a quick phone call or a quick broadcast signal is vital in making sure that your hotel guests are staying safe. I think it's almost a must now with everything. So if you are an EnGenius partner already, then please reach out to your partner manager. We have a lot of them that are really great that will make sure that you are getting help with each deployment and making sure that you are able to get the right equipment for every customer's needs. If you're not, make sure you register as a partner. You get good, good margins, have a large network of distributors, you have support, you have a partner portal, you have dual registration discounts. One thing about telecom products is that the registration starts at $2,000. So it helps a lot in getting us to help you in making sure that they're getting the right product, getting a little bit of a discount. So make sure you register your deals as well.